Hello, my lovely dreamers, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my first episode of True Crime Sunday. I am a big fan of true crime, and also I love ASMR, so for me, true crime ASMR is absolutely perfect. I know that not all of you enjoy such things, but I have a lot of videos uploaded on my channel, and if you do not like this one, please go and check my other videos. Maybe you will find something that you might like. I am a great fan of Stephanie Harlow, but I also listen to True Crime ASMR before going to sleep, and I finally decided to start a playlist of my own, which I'm going to call True Crime Sunday. I'm very excited about this project. I have been doing my homework for a week. I have been reading articles. For this you will see why, both in Romanian and in English. And today's episode is about Vera Renczi. The Romanian pronunciation is Vera Renczi, who is said to be the inspiration for Lady Dimitrescu, the famous character. You know who I'm talking about. She was also called the Black Widow, the Romanian Black Widow, although she didn't kill for money. She was, quote, only hungry for love. Before I get started, I have to say that this video is not intended to children under 13, and the viewer discretion is advised, because some might find this story terrifying. It really is. Alright, so let's get started. Vera Renczi was a prolific, I think it was the most prolific serious murderer in Romania, in the history of Romanian crime. So when a desperate wife presented to the police, asking them to look for her husband, they first refused her, but she insisted, and finally they went to a castle somewhere in Serbia of today, and they found there in the cellar, in her wine cellar, they found 35 zinc coffins. In each of them was the corpse of a man. In the middle, the coffins were arranged in circle, and in the middle of the room there was a candlestick and a bottle of champagne, a glass of champagne, and a red armchair. And finally, the lady of the castle, the lady of the house, admitted that she had killed all those men, including her own son. So there were two husbands in there, her son, and a lot of lovers. But let's start with the beginning. This story has the ingredients of a success story that every tabloid of any time in history would like to publish. So the very existence of Vera Renczi is a mystery in itself. Some say that there are no proofs that she had ever existed. Some others say that she existed, of course. I went back and read articles from 1925 up to today, and the original article that presented her story was written back in the 1925 based on letters from the and accounts from the readers. But there has never been found any document or something to really prove that Vera Renczi exists. Some say that the story was fabricated by the famous journalist back in 1925. Others say that the story is true and documents might have probably got lost because it was a difficult period, and so I'm not here to debate if Vera had really existed or not. I'm just here to tell you her story and tell you why she was called the Black Widow. So let's go back to the end of the 19th century in a Bucharest, which was used to call the Little Paris back then. A city which was developing very fast. Back then, some sources say that she was born in the 1903, but the article about her appeared on 1925, so it's not likely. There are a lot of mysteries and a lot of pieces of the puzzle missing, so she was most probably born at the end of the 19th century in a Bucharest known for its multicultural background, and she was the daughter of a rich Hungarian businessman, and Romanian young woman who was supposed to be extremely beautiful, just like her daughter. And we can just use our imagination and fill in the gaps where we do not have the certain information. It was not a legal marriage, it was an affair, and we might assume that the Hungarian businessman probably had a family of his own somewhere in Hungary, and that her mother was probably some kind of promiscuous, very beautiful young woman who earned her living being the mistress of rich men. I I just assume all these things because if she had been an aristocrat or something, these things weren't very loud and the story would have probably had another ending. So she grew up in Bucharest up to 13. I assume that her father was not very present. Probably he went back to Hungary to his family, but he helped with money and so, and her mother probably didn't take very good care of her daughter. I don't know, probably she was busy with her numerous affairs and so on, so she grew up kind of neglected and let by herself in a way. When in one of those times articles, one of the articles back from 1925, I read that she used to have, and this story made me so sad, she used to have a little dog, and her parents, she heard her parents talking that they need to give that dog to someone else because it was barking all the time. And then she went and poisoned her dog because she couldn't stand to belong to someone else except her. That she was so possessive and jealous that she couldn't stand the fact that the dog would be loved or love in return some other person. I doubt that this is true. I hope. But this is what I've read. Quite disturbing. And when she was 13, her mother died, and her father decided to come to Bucharest and take her to he bought for her a mansion in Berkerekul, which is today's Berkerekul, which is today's Zrenjanin. I'm sorry if I mispronounced this. And he returned to his family in Hungary. So all these things, the whole story happened in the Austro-Hungarian Empire back then. She attended there a boarding school, and she became very difficult to manage because she had a very suspicious, a passionate and jealous character, and she started to have a lot of affairs without choosing. It is said that she woke up every morning in the bed of other college student. She had a lot of affairs, starting with high school students and ending with much older men. It is also said that she had a pathological desire for the male companionship. Probably, assume again the lack of her father in her childhood made her look for someone to protect her. I think it was this, that need to be loved and to love. Probably she grew up neglected by her mother. She probably saw her father once or twice a year, and I assume again that he probably brought her a lot of presents and spoiled her when he came to visit her. And then her mother died. He took her with him, but not he didn't make her a member of his family. He chose to let her in a boarding school somewhere apart from his own family. And probably all these things made her look for someone to protect her, someone who would never leave her as her father did when she was very little. When he came, spoiled her, and then he left. I'm just filling in the gaps. I don't know if the puzzle pieces are just the missing ones, but I'm trying to fill in the gaps. Okay, so we are in Berkerekul, somewhere in today's Serbia, Yugoslavia back then. She is a stunningly beautiful young woman. Another missing piece of puzzle here. There are a lot of pictures of her on the internet, but none of these pictures is really of her. There are pictures from famous models or pictures of other famous characters, or another famous actress, Russian actress, whose name is also Vera, but who hadn't killed anyone. So there are no pictures of her. In some letters, in some articles, she is described as being a brunette. In others, a beautiful blonde-haired young woman, but nobody really knows how she looked like. There is no picture. Back in 2012, Daily Mirror published a picture of Vera Renczi, but they later apologized. It was the picture of a famous model. Okay. So if you see a picture of her on the internet, it's not her. Okay, so she was stunningly beautiful. She had multiple affairs. There were articles in the local newspaper describing her promiscuous way of life. But she met a banker called Karl Schick. She fell in love and they got married, and the wild young woman changed herself into a docile wife, very caring, loving, and later into a very good mother. She turned herself into a very elegant and decent and extremely loving wife and mother. They had a son together whose name was Lorenzo. Well, as a banker and businessman, Schick used to go on business trips and spend a lot of time working, and her suspicious mind and jealousy made her believe that he probably cheated on her, had another woman. And soon after their marriage, Schick vanished, disappeared. Just like so, he disappeared. And she told everyone that she received a letter from some friends in Romania telling they told in that letter told her that her husband was killed in Bucharest in a car accident, and she started wearing black. Of course, being such a good wife and so decent and devoted, everyone believed her. After a year, he met, Karl Schick was 20 years her senior, was older than her. Later on, after his presumed death, she met Joseph Renczi, whose name she is wearing up to nowadays. The character Vera Renczi, she became a character, and they got married, but it was said that they were a very beautiful couple, and Joseph Renczi was not a very good husband. He had a wandering eye, and he liked women's company, and he was faithful for a month or two, and after that he became cheating on her. And guess what? He also disappeared. First he became very sick, and a devoted wife took care of him. He suddenly disappeared, and he told everyone that he got another letter in which he says that he was going to leave her because he found another woman. And she told everyone that he left her for another woman and that he's hiding because he's too ashamed. After this, she began to wear only black dresses. She used to wear only black, and she went to Vienna and started to have a lot of affairs, and from time to time she chose one special one to bring him to her castle, where he disappeared. So man after man, a lot of them disappeared, including her own son, Lorenzo. she was quite careful because she chose her victims very carefully, especially strangers and people coming from abroad with business. But she fell in love again with another banker, Milorad, and guess what? This one also disappeared. But this one had also a wife who loved him very much and who went to the police and told them that his husband was last seen in the company of Vera Renczi at her mansion, at her castle. Both women were very rich and influent, and the police didn't believe her. She later found a letter and went back to the police with that letter. Well, she insisted a lot, and the police went to Vera, and she admitted that she had an affair with him, but that he told her that he was married and they broke up, and probably he must have committed suicide. And that was it. But Milorad's wife conducted her own investigations and found out that a lot of men disappeared in very strange circumstances, including her two husbands. And her son went back to the police, and finally they decided to return. Well, Milorad's wife insisted to search all her castle. They didn't find anything, but she insisted to go down. Some sources say that it was a crypt, a family crypt. Other sources say that it was the wine cellar. Okay, so they went down to that cellar, and an article from 1925 said it was written that there were 3 iron doors, and they had to open 3 iron doors, which were very well guarded by an old servant. And when they opened all these doors and entered the cellar, the crypt, whatever, they found 35 zinc coffins arranged in a circle, and in the middle of this horrifying arrangement was a red armchair, an empty bottle of champagne, and a candlestick and a glass of champagne. Every coffin had a name on it, and some sources, the original article says 35 cans. Other articles mentioned 35 zinc coffins. Zinc was very expensive from what I've read back then, and also preserved the corpses very well. it is said that Vera burst into tears and said that I'm not, quote, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a murderer. Then she went from coffin to coffin, telling who was in there. On the 12th coffin, she fell on her knee and began crying. It was the coffin of her son Lorenzo. Lorenzo saw her carrying a corpse in the cellar, and she had to kill him also. She admitted that she poisoned all those men using arsenic. Her first husband was poisoned with arsenic, which was poured into his dinner wine. And the second one was also poisoned with arsenic, but also she used strychnine. So they had a very terrifying and painful death. She was asked why, and she said that I just wanted to be the last woman their eyes laid on. She couldn't stand the idea of being left. Now, this way, she could have all of them together, and she told them that she used to go from time to time and sit in the red armchair, have a glass of champagne, and talk to each of the men that he had previously killed. Of course, Vera was arrested and she was sentenced to death, but it was later commuted, her punishment was commuted to life in prison, and while being locked in her cell, she began showing signs of dementia. She began talking to her victims, seeing them in front of her eyes. So she was locked up in a madhouse, in a mental hospital, where she died at the beginning of the Second World War. This was her story, the story of Vera Renczi, and as I have mentioned, I'm not here to debate her very existence or not. There are people who strongly believe in her existence. There are others who say that there is no proof, no document except the original article written back in 1925, and this article was some kind of source from other articles which appeared in different newspapers of that period in different countries, including Yugoslavia. Some others say that Berkerekul do not exist, and it is an invented town. Nobody, they imagine that it is what's Zrenjanin of today, but in this city nowadays there is no trace of her memory. Nobody knows anything about her existence. There is no document. As I have also mentioned, there isn't any pictures of her. All we have is that original article, which is said to be written based on letters from witnesses and readers. But taking into account the fact that it was a long time ago and archives, a lot of them were destroyed, we probably will never find out the truth. If this had been an invented story by a journalist or a real story of a stunningly beautiful woman who wanted someone to love and never leave her again. Let me know in your comments if you liked the story. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think this story is real or not. But the story was also presented in Deadly Women. In the first episode, I thought is called Obsession. And it was said that she was absolutely hungry for love. She just wanted to be loved. So, I hope that you enjoyed my very first episode. And if you like this kind of ASMR, I will see you next Sunday with another case. So thank you very much for watching and see you next time.